Welcome back to another DPS analytic video. This is going to be the final week for Phase 4 of Molten Core. Looking at all percentiles first, we have the Assassination Rogue being the highest median DPS at the moment, and right behind that we have both Hunter specs as well as your Fury Warrior and the Feral Druid. Outside of that, everything else is pretty close and very competitive in terms of median DPS. Only thing that is underperforming still is your LA Shaman and the Arms Wearer. The Arcane Mage, of course, is being treated more as a healer spec, so we're not really going to consider that. And then Demo is really a tank spec at the moment. It's not necessarily meant to be a pure DPS build. However, you can still do it, but if we aren't going to see any changes or any buffs to these classes, Phase 5 will look very similar for the LA Shaman and the Arms Warrior. If we take a look at 95 percentile, and then we hover over this and go to tanks and DPS, we will see that some of your DPS are doing quite literal tank damage, or even lower than tank damage, like your LA Shaman and your BM Hunter. And then of course, out of everyone, the Arcane Mage is doing less than any of the other tanks. Your Sub Rogue is doing more than some of these guys down here, which is crazy to me. And even the Balanced Druid, despite receiving some buffs, is very close to this Sub Rogue. So hopefully with the PvP change coming in the near future, we can hope to have some of these specs that are really good and dominant in PvP get a little bit of a boost when it comes to raiding. Looking at max percentile, we'll see that the Fury Warrior is on top at the end of the phase, and then your second, third, and fourth place spot are very competitive. The Fire Mage, the Feral Druid, and the Assassination Rogue are pretty much neck and neck. Given some good RNG to either of these other two classes, they could take that second place spot, so you could just assume that they are pretty much tied for second place. And then your Ret Paladin has been holding on to this fifth place spot pretty competitively throughout the entire phase. They've moved up quite a couple spots. They were underneath the Frost Mage, and the Frost Mage was probably down here in terms of DPS. Frost Mage has moved up a whole bunch of spots, and same for the Ret Paladin. I can't say so much for the Balanced Druid. They have beaten some of the underperforming specs, but still not quite meeting that median DPS. Again, going into Phase 5, if we're not going to get some sort of balance to the set bonuses or something like that, especially being able to use the old set bonuses in Phase 5, given from the data mined information, it's going to be a very similar story if we're not going to have some sort of adjustment to those tier sets. If we were to look at each fight specifically, it's going to look very similar to this on every other fight. Certain fights like Shaz, for example, your Enhance does very, very well, and even Gar, the Enhance does very, very well, but it's not really reflected on all of the bosses specifically, and that's mainly due to Sulfuron being a heavy AoE fight, favoring more of your 5+ AoE classes like your Fire Mages and your Warlocks, and of course your Feral Druid just being able to spam swipe the entire time. They're just going to consistently outperform all these other specs below them. And the same thing goes for Majordomo as well. Your Feral Druid dominating the charts here with a 7.3k DPS. Fire Mage not too far behind that, and then the Affliction Lock not too far behind as well. But again, your single target specs a little bit lackluster on this fight, but going back to Ragnaros or anything like that, it's the same specs that we talked about earlier. And then of course the Molten Core, same exact thing as the previous weeks as well. To wrap this video up, we're going to take a screenshot of the 95 and the max percentile. I'm going to be using these as a reference going into Phase 5 and compare how the rankings are going to change. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Comment down below what you'd like to see next, and as always, I will see you in the next one.